The girl caught a wild mouse using a trap. Then she began to skin it. She wrapped the sliced meat carefully with leaves. She wasn't doing it for food but for money. Today, she caught 10 wild mice. The butcher gave her 100 coins for them. To her, that amount could buy many things, like her favorite bread. She would then happily hold the bread in her arms and return to the forest, at the age when other children were loved and protected by their parents. This girl could only live deep in the forest, surviving by hunting wild mice. Her life was harsh, but she never gave up the hope of living well. She once had a warm family and loving parents, but everything changed when she was 5. This is a world of magic. Everyone receives magical skills from the gods, and those skills are ranked by stars. However, Ivy only received the tamer skill. Without any stars, it was considered a curse, a bringer of misfortune to the whole village. She was abandoned by her parents, and soon hunted by the villagers. Fortunately, a fortune teller named Luba, who possessed a 1-star foresight ability, helped her. Luba gave Ivy a book and a magic pouch, and taught her how to survive alone in the forest. Before they parted, Luba hoped that one day, Ivy could travel to a small town near the royal capital. And so, Ivy began her life on the run. She made a living by collecting trash. Every time she saw a garbage heap, she would feel a bit of joy. She had to search through piles of waste, hoping to find something useful. That was when she spotted a piece of clothing. A yellowed map fell out from inside it. There were also a few bottles of magic potion in the trash. Though their colors had changed slightly, they still seemed usable. Just then, she heard footsteps nearby. 2 men were feeding their slimes, controlling them with ease. By eavesdropping on their conversation, Ivy learned that they were the ones sent from the village to hunt her down. It seemed she had no choice but to get far away. Ivy started running non-stop. She chose to go through a forest filled with magical beasts. She traveled during the day and slept on the ground at night. The area was swarming with slimes. While trying to avoid them, Ivy accidentally fell off a cliff. Luckily, a large tree caught her backpack. Though her arm was left with a long, deep wound, Ivy quickly pulled out the magic potions she had collected. Since they were partly spoiled, she had to use 2 bottles to heal the wound completely. Ivy reached a small pond. She took off her tattered dress, ready to wash herself clean. The water was crystal clear. As she lay quietly in the lake, she felt peace and healing. She knew she had to stay strong. As a girl traveling alone, the world was far more dangerous. So Ivy cut off her beautiful long hair. She took out all the clothes she had collected and pieced together a new outfit. The clothes were worn and old, but she looked spirited and full of life. Then, Ivy continued her journey. In the grass, she noticed something unusual. It was a rare kind of slime, the weakest type of all. According to the monster guide, this kind of slime was extremely fragile. A single breeze could destroy it. Just then, a gentle wind blew, sending the slime floating through the air. Ivy carefully caught it in her hands. The book said this species could only live for 1 day. Looking at the tiny creature with a single day of life, Ivy couldn't help but see herself in it. She decided to stay with it until its final moment. In the past, Ivy always talked to herself, but today, she finally had someone to talk to. Ever since she was 5, when she received her starless magic skill, her once kind parents never even looked at her again. Though Ivy was a tamer, she couldn't tame any magical beasts, not even small animals. The only one who ever showed her kindness was the fortune teller, Luba, but she had passed away not long ago. Ivy spoke endlessly to the little slime. Perhaps it had been too long since anyone listened to her. She poured out every word she had kept buried deep inside, and finally, she fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, the slime was gone. Ivy fell to her knees in despair. For a moment, she felt utterly broken, but she tried to lift her spirits again. Life had to go on. She opened her map to check her direction, and was shocked to find the slime hiding inside it. It hadn't disappeared after all. Overjoyed, Ivy realized that the book's explanation was wrong. If that was the case, then maybe she wasn't the cursed child everyone claimed she was. She turned to the book again. To learn how to truly tame a magical creature, she gathered a small amount of magic at her fingertips and shared it with the slime. As a faint mark appeared on the slime's forehead, Ivy finally succeeded in taming her very first monster. She named it Sora. With joy, she lifted Sora into the air. For the first time, she was no longer alone. To survive in the forest, Ivy continued to hunt wild mice. Every time she caught one, she would say a small prayer, then skin it carefully and store it away. After that, She took out her map again and confirmed the direction of her next step. Just then, the ground began to shake. Sensing danger, Ivy immediately started running, but the strange noise behind her kept getting closer. She climbed up a tree to hide. From there, she finally saw what was making those sounds. It was a swarm of giant ants, hiding among the branches. Ivy tried to find a healing potion. That's when she noticed Sora had gotten a little bigger, but she didn't pay much attention to it. She took out a potion from her pocket and used it to heal herself. Since the potion was already spoiled, she had to use a large amount, yet such a small wound had already used up all her medicine. She could have sworn she had a lot more before. When Ivy finally left the forest, the nearest village was already in sight. There, she saw a wanted poster, and the face on it was hers. Wanted posters were plastered everywhere. Ivy was furious, but not because she was wanted. It was because the artist had drawn her so ugly, so she tore down all the ugly ones and left only the pretty ones behind. Then, Ivy decided to enter the village. Here, everyone used their skills to make a living. As she walked past a bakery, the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air. It was just ordinary bread. Yet to Ivy, it felt like a dream she could never reach. Then she passed by a butcher shop. Ivy suddenly remembered the wild mice she had caught. She wondered if she could sell them. To her surprise, the butcher said mouse meat was actually quite popular. He bought all the meat Ivy had brought and gave her 100 coins. With money in hand, Ivy decided to buy some bread, but she had never bought anything before. She didn't even know the prices. The lady at the bakery told her that with that much money, she could buy the entire basket of bread. In the end, Ivy picked 2 loaves. Holding them tightly, she ran back to the forest, beaming with joy. She shared 1 loaf with Sora. The bread was dry and coarse, but to Ivy, it tasted like heaven. Sora, however, didn't seem to care for it. The next day, Ivy found another trash pile. Inside were many bottles of magic potion, but their colors had all turned strange. Ivy carefully sorted them one by one. That's when Sora suddenly jumped onto a pile of blue potions and completely dissolved them all. Even the glass bottles. Only advanced slimes could break down inorganic matter. It seemed Sora was more powerful than she thought. And interestingly, it ignored every other color. It only cared about the blue potions. But blue potions were for healing wounds. She couldn't let Sora eat them all. Later, Ivy sold more mouse meat and once again bought bread. After returning, she took a bath in the forest stream. When she finished, she happily ate her bread again. She felt that the villagers here were all kind people. For the first time, Ivy wanted to stay and live somewhere. But the next morning, she noticed many unfamiliar men in the village. They saw the magic pouches hanging from Ivy's back and wanted to take a look at them. Frightened, Ivy immediately ran. She dashed to the butcher shop, only to find her wanted poster pinned to the wall. Those men were adventurers, and they had just bought up all the dried meat from the butcher. When Ivy passed by the bakery, the lady even gave her some bread for free. But behind her, on the wall, there was also a wanted poster of Ivy herself. Terrified, she turned and ran again. This village was wonderful, and everyone had treated her kindly. But she knew she couldn't stay here any longer. That night, Ivy stayed hidden in a tree. She wondered if there was still any place in this world where she truly belonged. The next morning, Ivy left the village behind. She decided to continue her journey toward the royal capital. Because she had fled in such a hurry, she hadn't prepared any food or water, so she planned to gather some food along the way. Soon, she spotted a tree full of golden fruit. They looked delicious at first glance, but as she got closer, she realized it was a man-eating tree. Ivy froze in fear. Luckily, Sora pushed her out of the way just in time. Ivy escaped, but her arm was badly injured, and all her healing potions had already been eaten by Sora. Then, Sora jumped onto her hand and began healing the wound itself. Perhaps from exhaustion, Ivy slowly drifted into sleep. In her dreams, she saw her parents again. Back then, they had loved her deeply. Her father was a carpenter. She had an older brother and sister. The whole family adored little Ivy. Her mother used to ask what kind of magic skill she wanted in the future. Ivy would always answer that she wanted a taming skill, so she could become a tamer and make friends with magical beasts. Her brother would laugh every time she said that. Just then, there was a knock at the door. The visitor was the village fortune teller, Luba. She possessed a 1-star divination skill, a highly respected power in the village. She had heard Ivy's 5th birthday was coming soon, so she came to offer a blessing. Luba had met Ivy once before, when Ivy was only 2. At that time, Ivy's mother was worried. Because the little girl often said strange things, Luba explained it was nothing to worry about. She said she could do a small reading for Ivy. After sending the mother out of the room, Luba quietly told Ivy that she carried memories from a past life, but if anyone found out, it could bring her trouble, so she told Ivy to keep it a secret. When the fortune-telling was over, Luba told the mother that Ivy would receive a wonderful skill someday, but after she left the house, a troubled look appeared on Luba's face. Finally, the day to receive her magic skill had arrived. Ivy walked to the sacred altar. She placed her hand into the water. Then, a glowing water sphere rose from the basin. Written on it was her skill Tamer, but when it came time to evaluate her star level, the sphere suddenly exploded. Seeing this, the priest was horrified. It meant that Ivy's skill had no star rank. He declared that Ivy was a child abandoned by the gods. After returning home, the atmosphere in the house changed completely. Her father began drinking every day. He couldn't understand why they had given birth to such a child. He smashed Ivy's toys in anger. He even accused her mother of having an affair. At that time, Ivy couldn't comprehend what was happening. She tried to comfort her mother, but her brother dragged her away and threw her out of the house. Even her sister looked at her with disgust. From that moment on, the villagers began speaking to her with venom. The village chief called her a harbinger of disaster. Children threw stones at her whenever she passed. There was no longer a place for Ivy in this village. That night, Ivy found a cave to hide from the rain. She broke off some branches, hoping to use magic to light a fire, but her magic power was too weak. Before she could ignite anything, she fainted. When she woke up again, she found that Luba had saved her, because Ivy's mana was far below normal. Using it carelessly could even threaten her life. Luba warned her never to use magic recklessly. Then, Luba gave her several books and a magic pouch. She explained that even though people in this world possessed magical skills, knowledge itself could still sustain a good life. The knowledge in those books, she said, would surely help shape Ivy's future. Luba encouraged her to begin a journey, to travel the world, and eventually head for a town near the royal capital. But she also told Ivy that if she found a place she wished to settle, she didn't need to go all the way there. Luba especially reminded her, if she ever met someone she could truly trust, she must tell them everything she had experienced. In the days that followed, Luba began teaching Ivy how to survive in the wild. Ivy couldn't help but ask why Luba didn't despise her like everyone else. Luba smiled and said, long ago, people had no magic skills at all, and even then, they still lived happily. So not having a magic skill isn't a bad thing. Those peaceful days continued for 3 years. Ivy survived by scavenging and hunting, but during that time, Luba never came to visit. One day, Ivy secretly sneaked back into the village. That was when she discovered the truth. Luba had fallen ill and passed away, and the village chief blamed it all on Ivy. He issued an order to hunt her down, and leading the pursuit was Ivy's own father. Ivy jolted awake from the nightmare. She looked at her arm, thinking that Sora was about to eat her. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad, she thought. After all, she was just a child nobody wanted. But the next morning, Ivy was awakened by Sora's soft voice. Her wounds had completely healed. To her surprise, Sora could not only consume magic potions, it also possessed healing abilities. Over time, its body began to change. It grew much larger, and its movements became quick and nimble. Since Ivy had already eaten all her dried meat, she decided to catch more wild mice, sell them for money, and buy more food. She didn't cook for herself, because cooking fires in the wild could attract monsters. Just then, Sora started making noise again. Even after drinking 4 bottles of blue potions, it still wasn't satisfied. Luckily, Ivy stumbled upon another trash pile. Inside, she found a set of clean clothes, and most importantly a whole box of magic potions, although most of them had changed color. Sora didn't seem to mind at all. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed inside Ivy's mind. It was the voice from her previous life, telling her to mix the potions together. So Ivy mixed the blue and red potions. Sora immediately signaled that it loved the taste. After that, Ivy continued on her journey. Her once lonely travels had become much more enjoyable. Soon, she discovered a patch of wild fruit. She packed all of it to take along, but before long, Sora got hungry again, while Ivy was worrying about it. The voice from her past life spoke once more. It told her to lull Sora to sleep, because while asleep, it wouldn't burn through energy so fast. So Ivy decided to tell Sora a bedtime story, but before Sora could fall asleep, she was the one who drifted off first. When Ivy woke up, she found that all the potions were gone. Sora had eaten every single one. Later, Ivy set traps in the grass to catch wild mice for money, but when one of the traps snapped shut, the creature inside wasn't a mouse at all. It was a magical serpent. Ivy was scared, but she refused to give up. She grabbed her sack and swiftly trapped the serpent inside. Ivy followed the main road onward. That's when she smelled something strange. She walked closer to investigate and found an overturned wagon by the roadside. Several bodies lay scattered on the ground. Terrified, Ivy grabbed her sack and ran. She ran and ran until she reached another village. There, she went straight to the village office to report what she saw. But upon seeing all the adults inside, she froze, too frightened to speak. Eventually, she gathered her courage and told them everything. The people around her all turned to look. Ivy described every detail she had seen. Then a man wearing armor stepped forward, saying he would go investigate the scene. He promised Ivy a small reward after the matter was confirmed. After that, Ivy went to an apothecary. She sold the serpent she had caught for 3 silver coins. That was the same as catching 30 wild mice. With that much money, Ivy no longer had to worry about food for a while. She decided to find another trash heap for Sora, hoping to locate some expired potions. Unexpectedly, she found a pile of discarded magic pouches instead. While Sora devoured the potions, Ivy discovered 21 of those pouches. She organized and tied all of them to her body. When she returned to the street, she saw many armed adventurers passing through. The armored man from before spotted Ivy and greeted her warmly. He told her the investigation was complete. It had been an ogre attack. Now, high-ranking adventurers had gathered to hunt it down. He advised Ivy not to leave the village for a while, and told her to collect her reward at the office. This time, Ivy received a silver plate and 2 gold coins. To Ivy, that was a fortune. She couldn't even count how many wild mice she'd have to catch to earn that much. But as she walked through the streets, she noticed everyone staring at her strangely. Ivy thought they were after her gold coins, but in truth, it was because she had strapped too many magic pouches to her body.